As we embark on this spiritual pilgrimage, may our souls be uplifted by the grace and mercy that surrounds us. Selected 1. All of their attempts to ruin you simply flopped spectacularly. There is nothing they can do to stop what is already happening, and the money they have been keeping from you, the benefits they have been taking, and the inheritance they believed they would retain forever are all coming back to you with interest. At 3 in the morning, you received a call from the person you selected, not on your phone, but on theirs. The person lying next to you, the one who said they loved you through every hardship, felt their blood freeze at that instant as the voice on the other end said only 2 words before hanging up. Their meticulously built empire of falsehoods had just been sentenced to death after years of planning your impoverishment, innumerable nights of draining your vitality as you slept, and methodically ruining every chance that presented itself. However, that phone call was only the start of a process that had already begun long before anyone had ever called those numbers. For months, federal agents had been keeping tabs on this scheme, constructing a case so strong that even the most dishonest officials couldn't escape what was about to happen. Surveillance teams have taken pictures of each fake signature. All of the fabricated mental health reports have been compared to real medical records. Financial networks that leave digital traces that are impossible to remove have been used to track down every stolen dollar. The individual next to you believed they were carrying out the ideal crime, but in reality, they were entertaining federal officials who had witnessed this kind of complex scam before and knew exactly how to take it apart piece by piece. However, we're overly optimistic. Let's go back to the beginning, when you still thought their promises weren't poison and their tears were genuine. You used to believe that the fatigue you had whenever you were around them was simply stress. You thought postal inefficiency was the reason your mail vanished. When you held yourself responsible for the enigmatic ways your phone would malfunction whenever you attempted to access particular accounts. You've been living inside the most intricate spiritual robbery in contemporary history. You see, chosen one, in order to use your strengths against you. The person planning it has been sharing your bed, researching your routines, identifying your weaknesses, and recording them. Your mother's estate, your grandmother's life insurance, and the family trust that ought to have saved you from hardship years ago were all yours to receive. All of it has been going into accounts that are in your name, but are run by people who are not related to you. Someone else was enjoying your life, spending your money, and laughing at how effortlessly they persuaded the world that you were too mentally ill to handle your own affairs, while you were struggling to make ends meet and wondering why abundance felt like a foreign notion. They even had the gall to pay for the psychological tests intended to demonstrate your incapacity using your pilfered money. All of a sudden, strangers were complaining about your mental health. Official documents appeared out of nowhere, and social workers, with worried looks, were knocking on your door. As they told the authorities how you had changed, how you had become erratic, and how you obviously required professional treatment, your loyal family members were nodding pitifully. You were unaware that your identity thief was practicing your signature in various handwriting styles and learning every detail of your personal history that could be used to pass verification checks while you were being examined by psychiatrists who had been paid to draw certain conclusions. Your conspirators were informed of every doctor's appointment you believed to be private. Every prescription drug you were given was closely watched to make sure it kept you confused and cooperative. Every treatment session you went to was utilized to learn more about your psychological weaknesses and emotional triggers. The bogus twin would inquire about your day when they got home from work, feigning concern for your welfare while gathering information for the next stage of their methodical assault on your reputation and legal status. However, the universe has been compiling its own case file. Cosmic investigators took pictures of each falsified signature. Spiritual stenographers documented every untruth spoken in courtrooms. Divine auditors who never sleep or forget recorded every dime that was stolen. When federal investigators eventually stumbled onto the scheme, they found that they weren't the first to look into it. Rather, They were just being given access to what higher authorities had already painstakingly documented. If you plant a $60 seed of love, every branch that rises from that seed carries hope to someone else. Money flowing into accounts that shouldn't have existed, linked to Social Security numbers belonging to people who were allegedly institutionalized for mental incompetence, was the breakthrough discovered by a forensic accountant who saw patterns that defied rational explanation. They were astounded to discover a network of corruption so extensive and blatant when they began to delve deeper. Judges who have never seen the individuals they are writing commitment orders for. Reports on patients they have never evaluated are being filed by psychiatrists. Attorneys moving assets on behalf of clients they had never worked with. Bank employees authorizing transactions that went against all the procedures they had been taught to adhere to. Your so-called twin flame, the person you trusted the most, wasn't only complicit in this plot. The architect was them. Every intimate interaction served as a reconnaissance expedition to learn more about your spiritual practices, emotional triggers, personal documents, and family history. They were figuring out in their minds how long they could keep you in this dependent state each time they held you as you sobbed over your financial difficulties. All of their promises regarding your future together were lies meant to prevent you from examining your current situation too thoroughly, or from wondering why chances kept passing you by when success appeared to be within your grasp. Even before they spoke to you, they were aware of your value. Chosen one. From the initial chat, this was fraud masquerading as a romance, not a connection that developed into fraud. In order to make you feel thankful for their presence in your life, they looked into your family history, determined the inheritance you were entitled to, and presented themselves as your savior during a staged crisis. Your encounter wasn't scheduled by accident. It involved collaboration between several criminals who required an insider to keep an eye on your actions and report back on any attempts you might make to look into your financial circumstances. When you began to ask questions, the spiritual battle started. Your dreams abruptly turned into terrifying nightmares with unidentified dangers and improbable situations, leaving you feeling more worn out when you woke up than when you went to bed. After spending time with them, your vitality would be utterly depleted, leaving you too worn out to look into financial irregularities or seize possibilities. When you weren't looking, things in your house would move. Not enough to be noticeable, but enough to cause you to doubt your perception and recall. Electronics might break down just when you needed to make a critical phone call, apply for a job, or look into your legal alternatives. Through rituals carried out with your own personal possessions, your intuition, that gift that first made you a chosen one, was being methodically repressed. They took one of your garments, not just any clothes, but particular clothes you wore in powerful situations, clothes that reminded you of your peak vibratory levels and contained your energy signature. These were deliberate acquisitions for ceremonial purposes, not haphazard robberies of convenience that would have made ancient dark arts practitioners proud of their thoroughness. As you slept next to them, gullible and trusting, they were performing rituals to tie your spiritual strength to their will, forming energetic cords that would enable them to drain your life force even if you were physically apart. Your jewelry, your hairbrush, even old photos of you. In ceremonies held during new moon phases, when the veil between dimensions is thinnest, all of it was weaponized against you. They had a deeper understanding of your empathic nature than you did, and they took advantage of it by fabricating emotional crises to increase your energy output so they could extract it more effectively. Every battle they chose, every emotional trick they used, and every instance in which they caused you to feel erratic or insane was intended to keep you using your lower chakras, where your power could be more readily accessible and channeled. However, energy may only be momentarily redirected. It cannot be permanently stolen, and that energy bears compound interest that represents every incident of theft, manipulation, and artificially induced hour of pain when it returns to its original owner. The individual who has been depleting you for years is about to learn what occurs when a chosen one regains their complete spiritual authority and finally escapes false limitations. With your $25, you live out Jesus' words, "Where two or three are gathered together, there am I." The blessing of unity. Their condition will worsen in ways that are similar to how they made you feel. Unexplained worry, unexplained weariness, and physical symptoms that are difficult for medical professionals to identify or manage. You can work through these challenging insights with members of the Obsidian Inner Order, who recognize that often the most traumatic events in life serve as our best instructors. We promote wisdom rather than resentment. Your gift of being able to perceive people for who they really are will shield you from betrayals in the future. Strength, not weakness, is demonstrated by your ability to forgive while upholding boundaries. Your knowledge was not bestowed freely. It was acquired via experience. Make connections with truth-loving people. Click the link in the description to join the Obsidian Inner Order. This case wasn't discovered by the FBI by chance. They received a call from someone who had been following this conspiracy for months, keeping strict cover so none of the conspirators would suspect them, recording every action and assembling a strong case against all parties. It wasn't a curious stranger who turned up at convenient times, with good counsel and real concern, or the person who seemed to come into your life out of the blue during your darkest periods, or who asked too many questions, yet somehow always made you feel safer. They were federal protection, a badge-wearing guardian angel with subpoena authority assigned to keep an eye on your case, while investigators crafted theirs. Your karmic father, the false twin, the identity thief living under your name, dishonest lawyers, paid-off social workers, and corrupt psychiatrists have all been holding weekly meetings about your money for months in places the participants believe to be safe. They are all assembling in back rooms to talk about how to keep control of resources that were never theirs, how to prolong your institutionalization, and how to access other accounts they haven't yet found. They were unaware that every meeting was being filmed using spy gear that would have made intelligence services envious. Federal wiretaps were listening in on every phone call. Forensic accountants who specialize in cases of organized fraud were tracking down every financial transaction. Their masterwork of manipulation, the psychiatric ward event, was the result of months of meticulous preparation and methodical damage to their reputation. Your identity double was opening new accounts in your name and moving money they had amassed over years through their complex shell game, while you were being held for evaluation based on bogus reports they had submitted, using paid psychiatric testimony to declare you mentally incompetent, assuming legal guardianship through dishonest court proceedings, and keeping you medicated and institutionalized while they lived your life and spent your inheritance without supervision or accountability was the elegantly simple plan. One significant mistake they made, though, was underestimating the strength of bloodline protection, which kicks in when a chosen one encounters an existential danger. Not only did your ancestors step in when those mental assessments started, but they also planned a supernatural intervention so accurate and potent that all of the professionals involved were forced to reevaluate what they believed to be true about your case. For some reason, the physicians who performed your evaluation felt compelled to probe further, ask questions not on their usual forms, look into claims that appeared too easy, and examine testimony that seemed staged rather than real. In a matter of seconds, they had concluded that you were perfectly sane and that someone had tried to influence their professional judgment by using coached testimony and fabricated papers that went against the evidence. Federal agents were waiting in the parking lot when your discharge documents were signed, and the FBI was contacted before you were even discharged. That evening, a caller posing as a hospital supervisor called the bogus twin and inquired in depth about your relationship and their familiarity with your family's financial circumstances. In reality, they were giving federal agents recorded testimony that could be used against them in court, even though they believed this would help them hide their tracks. You were still attempting to comprehend the extent of the harm done to you by the people you trusted the most, and you were still recuperating from the psychological trauma of institutional betrayal when the house arrest warrants were served. Your contribution of $35 starts a movement that is not only material but also spiritual. When you sow, God begins to water. Currently wearing an ankle monitor, your identity thief is prohibited from utilizing technological devices or gaining access to any financial institutions without federal oversight. Agents who have spent decades constructing criminal cases against organized fraud rings are keeping a close eye on the phony twin, tracking their every move and understanding how these conspiracies attempt to hide their activities when they believe law enforcement is getting close. The relatives who took part in your persecution are learning that conspiracy charges include federal prison terms that render their local corruption ties worthless. Federal inquiries will result in the termination of the corrupt officials' jobs and the loss of their pensions for accepting bribes to take part in your fraudulent institutionalization. Due to their involvement in elder abuse and inheritance fraud, the attorneys who assisted in document forgeries are facing disbarment and federal charges, carrying mandatory minimum penalties. However, the chosen legal punishments are not nearly as quick or painful as the spiritual justice. Compound interest, which represents each minute of agony they fabricated, is undoing the black magic they have been using against you. Every spiritual being that they attempted to bind to their will is paying a visit to the person who is sleeping fitfully in a bed that they purchased with your stolen money. These entities include the guides assigned to your spiritual mission, the protective spirits of your bloodline, and the ancestors who left you that inheritance. All of them are now focused on the people who attempted to keep you from achieving your destiny. When they wear the items they took from your wardrobe, they get medical ailments like rashes and unexplained allergic responses that are impossible for doctors to diagnose or treat. They lack the spiritual safety that comes with divine favor and pure living, and the rituals they use to drain your energy are now consuming theirs 3 times as intensely. Cosmic justice is now rushing backward with overwhelming force through the energetic bonds they made to drain your power. The fake twin is going through a total spiritual breakdown that no amount of medicine or treatment can resolve, causing them to suffer in ways that would ruin the mind of a normal person. What they gave up for short-term financial benefit and the appearance of control over another human being is now a continual reminder of the true love they felt through you, love they had never known before and will never feel again. They're learning that genuine connection cannot be recreated by manipulation, that the energy they took from you was the only thing that kept their meaningless life bearable, and that they're drowning in their own darkness without your light, all the while being acutely aware of what they've lost. With the same methodical accuracy that they employed to cut you off from your support networks, their relationships are disintegrating. As the truth about their personalities becomes more obvious, friends start pulling away from one another. In order to avoid being linked to someone who is the subject of a federal investigation, family members are severing ties. As news of the criminal allegations circulates among their industry, professional colleagues are refusing to collaborate with them. More quickly than they can try to repair the damage, the social status they attempted to establish through stolen money and phony identities is disintegrating. As soon as federal investigators recognize the extent of the theft and the number of entities that would need to be involved in your restitution, your financial restoration got underway. Forensic accountants are working around the clock to track down every dollar that has been unlawfully moved, and the inheritance accounts are currently being unfrozen. With interest computed from the time of the improper diversion, life insurance policies that were redirected are being returned to their legitimate beneficiaries. Penalty interest is being used to restore trust assets that were obtained via falsified paperwork, more than making up for years of unlawful withdrawals and unapproved spending. But selected one, the money is only the start of your vindication. The dishonest officials who took part in your persecution are facing federal accusations that will put them in jail far from their local networks of protection, where their dishonesty will not protect them from the repercussions of their actions. In addition to losing their licenses and being subject to malpractice lawsuits that will force them to go bankrupt, The mental health experts who took bribes to fabricate your evaluations are also exposing the entire network of doctors who engaged in similar schemes against other vulnerable people. The attorneys who assisted in document forgeries are facing disbarment and federal charges of inheritance fraud and vulnerable adult abuse, both of which carry mandatory minimum penalties. Federal banking crimes will result in lifelong bans from financial institutions for the bank officials who processed the unlawful transactions. Due to penalties and the loss of their credentials, the social workers who submitted fake reports will never be able to work with vulnerable groups again. Even a $5 donation is the first spark of a miracle when it joins with the hand of the Lord, who multiplies one loaf to thousands. Now that federal justice and divine intervention are removing the phony ones, your true spiritual family is ready to come into view. The individuals who are aware of your light and wish to enhance it instead of steal it have been waiting for this opportunity. Like pieces on a cosmic chessboard, they are poised to enter your life as soon as the imposters are removed. You have been shielded from this turbulence so that your true twin flame, whose frequency is the same as yours and neither of you needs to lessen, can join your existence free from karmic interference and manipulation attempts. These genuine connections have been keeping an eye on your predicament from a distance, following their own instincts to avoid contact until the threat has passed, but they have also been getting ready to assist in your recovery and rejoice in your success. They saw that you were being attacked on a soul level and acknowledged the process you underwent to get the insight and spiritual authority that would protect you from future deception. Your genuine family produces their own energy, so they don't need to steal it. They trust cosmic justice and divine timing, so they don't need to manage you. The identity thief, who believed this fraud would be short-lived and unnoticeable, is now learning that living under someone else's name has repercussions they never expected. Since federal authorities have seized the funds they used to support their lifestyle, the legal agreements they signed in your name now bind them to financial responsibilities they are unable to fulfill. The health problems resulting from the medical procedures they underwent with your insurance are a perfect reflection of the spiritual harm they caused you. Chronic pain that medication cannot alleviate, anxiety disorders that appear precisely when they attempt to find peace or sleep, and mysterious illnesses that doctors are unable to diagnose. Their capacity to contribute to society is currently being undermined by the credit they ruined in your name. Their fake identity is disintegrating as background checks turn up inconsistencies that prevent employment and automatically deny housing applications. They are learning that identity theft is more than simply a criminal. It is a spiritual transgression that results in karmic debt that must be paid in ways that go beyond monetary reparations. They accrued energetic responsibilities to your lineage at each instant they were you, and they are now being gathered with unnatural accuracy. Anyone with spiritual sight can now see your protection, which takes the form of an energy sphere that thwarts efforts at manipulation before they have a chance to completely develop. Rather than going back to their original location, the ancestors who stepped in during your darkest moment have made their home permanently around you, erecting a wall that is impenetrable by black magic. Success feels smooth and natural because your spirit guides, who were always there but were unable to fully manifest while you were being attacked, are now working at full capacity, arranging coincidences and opening doors with uncanny accuracy. There are considerably more repercussions for the karmic parent who assisted in planning this conspiracy than just criminal penalties and jail time. Cosmic law, which acknowledges that spiritual offenses have no time limit, is taking away from him and redistributing the generational wealth he attempted to pilfer from your lineage. Even if it means starting over from scratch, his own children are choosing integrity above money after learning that their inheritance was founded on theft. This disclosure is having repercussions in every sector where corruption has established itself. Following the successful prosecution and exposure of the pattern, other victims of similar schemes are coming forward. In order to find more instances where networks of dishonest professionals routinely defrauded vulnerable people, law enforcement authorities are exchanging information across jurisdictions. Future victims will find it easier to obtain justice as a result of the precedent your case sets, and predators will find it more difficult to conceal themselves behind institutional power and professional qualifications. Observe the rapid transformation of the bogus twin story as they become aware of their capture. Suddenly, the person who said you were mentally ill is trying desperately to prove to investigators that you are completely sane. The person who reported your unpredictable actions is now attempting to retract the testimony they provided under oath. The person who claimed you couldn't handle money is pleading with federal officials to think you're a financial whiz who was just being harassed by envious relatives. However, you have decided that you will not accept any attempts at reconciliation or apology. When they set fire to your life, the version of you that put up with their abuse perished. Someone they've never met, someone who sees their manipulation strategies clearly, who knows exactly who they are and what they've done, and who functions at a frequency so high that their lower vibrational energy can no longer reach you, came out of those flames. Your support of $70 revitalizes souls like the season that brings forth buds from dry branches. You won't want the stolen clothing returned, but federal investigators are returning it while the evidence is being cataloged. Contact with anything used in rituals against you would contaminate your heightened frequency, and everything they touched throughout their years of deceit now bears their energetic signature. Only your energy signature and the blessings of your true loved ones will be carried by new clothing you buy with your correctly restored money. When you sign the papers that restore your financial access and legal identification, your new life officially begins. The balances of the bank accounts that were blocked throughout the course of this investigation will soon be released, showing not only the amount that was taken but also the amount that would have been generated over time by wise investments. We're working to restore your credit reports to reflect your true financial responsibilities after identity theft ruined them, with proof that your competency was never questioned. The legal standing that was jeopardized by fraudulent psychiatric evaluations is being entirely restored. From whatever distance their home detention permits, the fake twin is witnessing your metamorphosis, seeing you become everything they attempted to keep you from becoming, and their remorse is physically eating away at them from the inside out. They had access to real love, a real connection, and a relationship with someone who was meant to be extraordinarily wealthy. But they exchanged all of that for short-term power and money that they will never be able to maintain. The fact that you survived this entire trauma with your compassion unharmed, however, may be its most lovely feature. Your heart is filled with sympathy rather than animosity for those who attempted to ruin you. You realize that someone who is capable of such intricate spiritual thievery and deception must be suffering from such severe wounds that they have lost touch with their own divine essence. All you need to do to win is to get them out of your electromagnetic field, not to destroy them. Convictions resulting from the investigations will be upheld in an appeal. The procedures used to process the financial restitution are impervious to corruption and delays. Natural law has already provided spiritual justice and doesn't need to be enforced by humans. And since there is no longer anyone in a position to stop or steal it, you, the chosen one, are entering a new universe where plenty flows freely. Other selected individuals who are still caught in comparable webs of deceit and thievery will use your narrative as a model. For investigators working on related cases, the documentation of how this conspiracy was uncovered will act as a guide. Healers assisting other victims of energy theft will examine the spiritual mechanics of how your protection triggered. Your triumph is more than simply a personal triumph. It is a breakthrough that facilitates the lives of all those who follow you. Their downfall was caused by the very rags to riches metamorphosis they attempted to stop. Every lie they told and every document they falsified was exposed by your ascent from fictitious poverty to legitimate wealth. The money they took turned into proof. They were convicted of a crime based on the identities they had stolen. Your spiritual defense was awakened by the energy they depleted. And now, chosen one, You see the fuller reality of what just transpired as you stand in the ashes of their plot, clutching legal paperwork that return what they took and more, surrounded by unbreakable spiritual protection and unstealing financial riches. This was never truly about money. It was about demonstrating that divine justice is always upheld, that chosen ones cannot be destroyed forever, and that light always triumphs against darkness, regardless of how complex the darkness thinks its schemes are. The justice has been done, the protection is permanent, the millions are coming in, and your new life, the one they so desperately attempted to stop, begins.